The Phantom Carriage is a Swedish fantasy horror film from 1921, one of the earliest Swedish films. It was released on New Year's Day and based on a novel by the same name in Swedish, written by Nobel Prize winning Swedish author Selma Lagerlöf. I hope I pronounced that correctly. It's got a lot of flashbacks and even flashbacks within flashbacks, which was a very advanced narrative structure for film at the time. In the beginning, it shows the character David, played by director Victor Sjöström, telling his drinking buddies in a graveyard a story about how the last person to die in the year has to drive Death's carriage the next year to collect the souls of those who die in that year. David is then called to see a woman who is dying, but a fight breaks out and David is hit in the head just before midnight. The carriage arrives to take his soul, and out comes his friend, who was the last person to die the previous year, to hand over the reins to him. What follows are a series of flashbacks in David's personal life, his wife, his relationship with his dead friend, the woman who wanted to see David on her deathbed, and many of these flashbacks are inside of other flashbacks. It gives the story a bit of a disjointed feeling. The dead friend kind of acts towards David in a similar manner as the ghosts of Christmas in A Christmas Carol do towards Ebenezer Scrooge. The ghost is trying to teach him a lesson about his life. And throughout the film, you'll learn that David really needs to learn a lesson or two. There's even a scene where he uses an axe to break down a door to get to his wife and children. It resembles the famous scene in The Shining a lot, and it may be where Stanley Kubrick got the idea from. During these flashbacks he is shown, David is also given a vision of his wife dying of tuberculosis. She is afraid to leave her children with nothing, and nobody to care for them, so she plans to poison herself and her children. At the end of the film, David wakes up and rushes to her. He convinces her that he wants to change and overcome his alcoholism. It's actually a really touching scene. The actor is crying incredibly convincingly, and David and his wife Anna have a really touching and tender few moments. It's a really gentle moment in an otherwise very dark and tragic film. To achieve these special see-through effects, the film creators experimented a lot with double exposure and multiple layers in film, advancing the technique a lot. It's a very surreal film, but seeing these effects is really cool. The film is in the public domain, just like everything before about 1923, I think. I'll put a link in the description for those of you who want to watch it. It's worth it for those who want to see a dark and personal story with early special effects.